Hey y'all, today we are working on building the tables for the city expansion. I'm hoping to get both expansions built out of this, what I got laying around the house. So let's go ahead and jump into working on getting that expanded. Okay, I cut all the pieces outside and pulled them inside. I had to clean up a little bit because, I'm very tight on room now, especially with these added expansions. My room's just getting tighter and tighter, which I think is why this is probably going to be the last expansion. There's maybe just a little places where I could bump out into the room a little bit, but it's still really pretty tight. So I cut all the pieces outside. It was really hot, and that sucked because I would have probably built it outside, but I didn't want to build outside in the hot. Um, so my floor is super unlevel, and so I am actually building this with what's going to be the top is down. So I'm making sure I'm pushing down on the boards all the way to make sure that it's flat on the top, because I could care less what the bottom looks like. I just need to make sure that the top is flat so that when I go to add the boards on top, it doesn't create a bump or anything. And so I built it over in this bigger area, which is where the table used to actually be turned out into the room, where it was kind of like the hook part of the J. And so now, since I've turned that flat, I actually have some room to work in here, which actually was another huge benefit of making the layout a giant L instead of a J or any sort of other weird kind of shape. But the L shape, I think, is going to be the best, and I've now expanded it to the maximum extension that's available for that. I found that I like to build my own tables better than using something stock so that I can make it to whatever size I want. However, I have generally drifted towards two sizes, and in fact, the two tables that I made today are the first that are completely different sizes. My other two tables are 3x7 base plates, or 30 inches by 70 inches, and 50 inches by 70 inches, or 5 base plates by 7 by base plates. And those were totally arbitrary and just kind of what worked for the room that I'm working with. And so these are, one's going to be 3x5. This one is a 3x6. And they're just totally arbitrary numbers that just worked with the room. And I like that because I can make it fit to the room. Whereas if I was using like the IKEA tables or whatever stock things that are available, or then I don't have that flexibility to make it fit the room the best that it can. And I can change the height. I can fix the height to whatever and all of that. And it's honestly probably maybe about the same price, and maybe even a little bit cheaper than going out and buying some of the pre-built stuff. And it just works better for me, and I think maybe for other people as well. All right, I got the table moved over into place to make sure that it's going to fit. I have learned from many times that I've sometimes made errors on my measuring, mostly because I will forget that base plates are measured in units of 10 and not in feet. And so that's where I've kind of made some errors before. So I wanted to make sure that I got all that correct, and I did. And what I found is the easiest for me is to put the legs on upside down and then flip the whole thing over. Um, and it's definitely in this situation with this size of table is pretty easy to do. But when I did the bigger 5x7 base plate size tables, they were just a monster to flip over. I really struggled with them, but these are not too bad, and they get flipped over pretty easily. I did notice later on that in, I think, flipping over, I knocked my little unstable tree over, so that kind of sucked. But this all worked out pretty well, and you'll see a little bit of an error here in a minute. So I got the extension in, and I've realized I've have a little bit of a problem. I'm about a half inch off, and that's before I figure out if I have the same or different top piece, because I've been buying different things based on what's cheapest and what's available to me. So this isn't too bad. I'll just make some shims to go underneath the legs. Not a terrible problem, but definitely something I need to be aware of. I could unscrew the legs and just drop the legs down and make up the distance there. But if I had a second person here, I would probably do that. But since it's just me, I think I'm just going to shim it from the bottom and call it done. But yeah, I mean, you can see we are tight to the wall, and you can see why this is probably going to be the last expansion in this city, at least in this house. So let me get some shims made and get my tops cut, and we'll get moving along here. I try to always make sure that the tables are somewhat level, especially because, you know, this long section has 4 different tables that it sits on. And so if they're not, you get these like weird humps in your layout, and you definitely don't want that because it makes it hard to get all the bricks and stuff to interlock, and you can really kind of see some of the seams, and that's something you definitely don't want. You can see there I'm also doing the trick where I'm kind of figuring out what the shim piece is that I need by just raising up the level first and then sticking it underneath the foot. That's really kind of useful, especially when you're just by yourself trying to level stuff. It's hard to add shims, look at the level, go back, add shims, look at the level, and just back and forth, especially on some of the bigger tables, and maybe where they're not so accessible. Like on my other one, when I go to level it, it was kind of rough to get that all put together, just because of the access to it, and then having to crawl under, crawl back out, and all that. But leveling is really important, and I'm honestly more concerned about getting the seams level first and then working from there. So actually, before you even saw this video started, I had already shimmed that front left leg so that it was the correct height to match up with the front plates there. I didn't have the back one shimmed because the back one didn't have a plate right up against it, and actually won't, because that's where the raised section is. So that's a little bit less critical than that front section where there is a plate right there to deal with. But I definitely make sure there's no gaps or bumps or humps between the 2 sections of the tables. Okay, got my second table built. I did end up filling in the middle, especially, and I did screw all these tops down. I have found that when there's not a lot of weight sitting on them, like this is going to be mostly bay, so there's not going to be a whole lot of weight sitting on these, they tend to warp a little bit. And so I think screwing them down is a smart choice. Once I get this in place and figure out kind of where the seams of the base plates sit, I will screw these down also, just so they sit in there. But this is going to go right in here. And you're going to say, well, Travis, why don't you just tack it onto the end? Well, 2 things. First off, the end has my storage things built in, and right now I need those to be functional. And secondly, I think having this kind of open square area here in the middle will be beneficial because I can slide a bunch of stuff under there. And so I think from that view, it's going to be best to insert there in the middle. And also, I don't have to move all of that, right? That will just move with the table. So that's where that's going to go, down here. Again, same kind of thing. I want to see where this sits, and I definitely needed this centerpiece here because if you remember, the layout on this is 8 studs, base plate, 16 studs. No, I'm sorry, 8 studs. So there's my half base plate split. 8 and 8 is there's the half base plate, and then half base plate, full base plate. And so that puts an awkward seam kind of right in here, and I would like to right in here. I would like them to both be supported. So that's kind of why I did that. And actually, I will probably do this a little bit differently because I got to get train track down through there as well. So that's going to be definitely for another video. But, you know, we got the table in. This was a big step in that direction. So yeah, so I'm going to go move some stuff so I can get that other table inserted in over there. Okay, table put in. You're going to say, but Travis, there's a gap there. There's maybe a little bit of a gap there. And honestly, all that's okay. I might actually need to make this gap a little bit wider. And, you know, if you look over here, there's actually a gap here. And this is to make up for what I kind of call the Brixie problem. If you remember when he first made his giant city, he cut everything to 10 inches or on 10-inch increments when he cut his giant back wall. And the problem is these are not exactly 10 inches. They're like 10.05 inches or whatever. They're just a little bit bigger than 10 inches. And when you're doing a small layout, you can use the 10-inch measurement and it doesn't really matter. When you start to add up over many inches, all that little fraction off starts to add up. And so, so if we're looking at this is 5. We're talking width of base plates. This is 5, 7, so that's 12. This is another 7. This is 19. This is 6. So 25. No, 25 base plates long. So that's 250 inches. And so 25 times, a quarter of an inch or so, starts to add up to inches really quick. I don't think it's a quarter inch. I think it's like an eighth or a 16th of an inch. But regardless, that starts to add up when you get over this length. So truthfully, when I actually lay this out, you can see that I'm already kind of over a little bit here. So by the time I get down here, I might actually be, that far off. And that's just because of that extra little gap. The same thing happens over here, but maybe a little bit less because this is 7, 3, so there's 10, 17. So 17 base plates doesn't add that much of a difference, but it does definitely start to show up. And so I kind of know that, and that's why I don't screw any of my tables together. They're all kind of individually their own thing, mostly so that I can make those types of adjustments so that I don't have like 3 inches of overhang down here on the end. So anyways, that's where I'm going to stop this for today because I got to do a bit of cleanup. I got to vacuum because I got sawdust and crap all over the floor. I want to get the carpet back down so my dog's happy. And maybe start to lay out some base plates and get some things roughed in. So thank you for watching. Hope this was useful to you. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or if you have any comments about what I'm doing. Thanks, y'all.